for something that this president has described as perfect. The ability to understand what was up with Ukraine and this president has proven to be anything but. And now we know why.
I did not know about the strong concerns expressed by then National Security Advisor John Bolton to members of his NSC staff regarding the discussion of investigations.
Ambassador Bolton recommended that I send a first-person cable to Secretary Pompeo directly, relaying my concerns. I wrote and transmitted such a cable on August 29th, describing the folly I saw in withholding military aid to Ukraine.
Ambassador Sondland made clear that he was requesting an investigation of Vice President Joe Biden's son. Isn't that correct, sir?
That is correct.
And he stated that he was asking these requests in coordination with Chief of Staff, White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, correct, sir?
That is what I heard him say.
Everybody heard it, thought it, was told it because they all work for somebody else. You know, and while all these men and women are significant and honorable and certainly patriotic, no matter what the Republicans say, they're not calling the shots. They're there to implement decisions made by people who won't make the same choice that they did, to ignore the president telling them not to speak and do their duty. If everything is so perfect, then why hide the key players? If the Republicans are so desperate for first-hand knowledge, so frustrated that people can't give them the straight truth, then why don't they ask for the main players? You're so desperate that you would like to expose the whistleblower, someone whose identity is protected by law, even though you know they have no first-hand information, but you don't call for the people at the top of the food chain. You want first-hand info, but you don't want to question Bolton? You don't want Pompeo? You don't want Mulvaney? Bolton called it a drug deal. That's not first-hand information. You say nothing. Whose lawyer said he has personal knowledge about many relevant meetings and conversations? Bolton's lawyer did. You don't want the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. You don't want the Energy Secretary, Rick Perry, the Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney, and of course, the man in the middle, the man everybody talks about but you won't talk to, Rudy Giuliani. Do you understand the hypocrisy at play here? All of them are defying subpoenas for either documents or testimony at the White House's direction. Why? Why would this president keep his inner circle from testifying robustly in his defense? This is all just a witch hunt. If it was all perfect, they should be able to come in and convincingly just dispose of all of this. Let me cover something else. Anyone beneath them who says otherwise could, absent hard corroboration of their contradiction, be dismissed. Well, Vindman didn't know. He was wrong. Volker's wrong. Sondland's wrong. They got it wrong. I'm in charge. This is what I wanted them to do. The president was fine. This odd disconnect becomes obvious when they discuss the decision to basically hide the call, right? They hid this phone call. Morrison helped hide this phone call by going to the lawyers. Representative Jordan, presidential defender number one in this hearing, says it's prophetic. Listen.
You were prophetic, Mr. Morrison, because you said in your statement today, as I stated during my deposition, I feared at the time of the call on July 25th how the disclosure of the contents of the call would play in Washington's political climate. My fears have been realized.
Really? It didn't leak, by the way, and Jordan knows that. But he's in the business of coloring reality these days, isn't he? Was it prophetic or pathetic? He can rely on psychic ability, Congressman Jordan, or a divine hand. I argue for facts. And the people who have them, who guided the decisions, who dealt with the aid, who decided to hide that call, with an ask by Mr. Trump for the Bidens and Giuliani's desires, they're not here. It's as ugly as it is obvious why they're not screaming about that as they are everything else on the right. They would rather deceive you about this process being unfair and incomplete. Think about how pathetic it is to watch these men and women pick apart the inches of insight that these men and women who've testified so far have about the decisions that others made, instructions others gave them, and yet leave yards of truth untouched. Jordan sees the decision to hide the call because of how it played prophetic. Well, that's a fool's guess compared to the Cassandra-esque prescience to limit a hearing like this, of this importance, to the people who know the least. You cannot complain a process is unfair. You can insist, as Ranking Member Nunes did today, that people must answer because they're under subpoena, like he did with Lieutenant Colonel Vindman. You must tell me what I want you to say. You're under subpoena, or plead the fifth. When you're complicit in the decision that necessarily makes it unfair, and you say nothing about the big shots that you're too afraid to go against. The men and women on the right say nothing about the most important players being kept from this consequence, and until they change that, no matter how righteous they sound, they are part of the problem.